Have you ever wondered why something that seems too good to be true often is? Picture this: a quaint little barber shop tucked away in the corner of a nondescript town, and at its helm, a man named Mr. Faskell. A soft-spoken, seemingly harmless gentleman, he was my barber for 3 years. The intriguing part? He never accepted a penny for his services. Each time I'd sit in his chair with the smell of Old Spice and aftershave wafting in the air, the buzz of his clippers would be the only sound breaking the silence. His hands moved with the precision of an artist, sculpting my hair into perfection every single time. And as soon as he was done, he'd insist on sweeping up all the hair immediately, even if there were no other customers waiting. There was something peculiar about his insistence, something that struck me as odd. But who was I to question this man's idiosyncrasies? After all, he was providing me with a service, free of charge. I always found it amusing, this ritual of his, and even endearing in a way. It was Mr. Faskell's personal eccentricity, a harmless quirk, or so it seemed. But as the saying goes, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And perhaps there was more to Mr. Faskell's free haircuts and meticulous cleaning than met the eye. In the grand scheme of things, it was just hair, right? What could be so special about those discarded locks that they needed to be swept up instantly? I never gave it much thought, until one day when I'd stayed back in the shop a bit longer than usual. That day, as I watched Mr. Faskell, the chilling truth slowly began to unfurl. The ordinary setting of the barbershop was shattered by a sight so macabre it would turn the stomach of the most hardened of souls. In the corner, where the day's discarded hair lay, Mr. Faskell was crouched. With a casualness that belied the grotesque nature of his actions, he began to consume the swept-up hair. Each strand, each lock, each curl, he devoured with an unnerving relish. His eyes held a glint of satisfaction, an eerie delight that was profoundly disturbing. It was as if he was savoring a rare delicacy, a secret indulgence known only to him. As I watched, rooted to the spot, a wave of revulsion washed over me. A cold shiver ran down my spine, and I could feel the bile rising in my throat. The barbershop, once a place of comfort, was now tainted with an indelible horror. This unsettling discovery instilled a deep sense of discomfort in me. I felt my skin crawl every time I thought of Mr. Faskell's strange appetite. Paranoia began to creep in, casting long, sinister shadows over my once peaceful existence. I began to question everything. Why was he eating the hair? Was it some twisted ritual, or was there something more sinister at play? And most importantly, why was he giving me free haircuts? The once mundane act of getting a haircut now seemed fraught with danger. Every snip of the scissors, every sweep of the broom was a grim reminder of the horror I had witnessed. The barber shop, once a place of comfort, was now a chamber of secrets that I wanted no part of. The sight of Mr. Faskell consuming the hair cuttings was deeply disturbing, and from that day onwards I became a recluse. The world outside my home suddenly seemed fraught with unseen terrors, and I found solace only in the confines of my own four walls. With each passing day, my hair grew longer, and so did my fear. Imagine feeling the tickle of unruly hair brushing against your neckline, the itch of strands falling over your eyes, the weight of it all growing heavier with each passing day. All the while, the memory of Mr. Faskell's peculiar dietary habits haunted me, a specter in the mirror every time I ran a comb through my rapidly lengthening locks. The pressure to get a haircut mounted. Friends started to comment, aunts began to tisk, and even strangers on the street would shoot me quizzical glances. But the sheer thought of sitting in that barber's chair again, staring at my reflection while behind me, unseen hands, snipped and trimmed, sent shivers down my spine. It was a fear that gripped me, a fear that grew with each additional inch of hair. I wrestled with my apprehension, the internal struggle growing fiercer each day. Was it really worth it, I asked myself, to let my fear dictate my actions? Could I really let the eccentricities of one barber forever tarnish my experience of something so mundane, so routine? And then there was the question of finding a new barber. What if they were all like Mr. Faskell? What if this was a hidden secret of the barbering world that I had unwittingly stumbled upon? These thoughts, these questions, they swirled around in my head, an incessant whirlwind of fear and uncertainty. But as the days turned into weeks, my hair became almost unbearable, and the mirror reflected a stranger, wild and unkempt. It was then that I realized I had to face my fears. I had to confront the unknown. My fear eventually overpowered my vanity, and I decided to take the plunge and visit a new barber. In the end, it was not merely a haircut, but a lesson in trust and intuition. That, my friends, is the crux of this tale. When I finally mustered up the courage to visit a new barber, the experience was a stark contrast to my encounters with Mr. Faskell. This new barber, a jovial man with a jolly laugh, gave me a sense of ease that I hadn't felt in a long time. The scissors snipped, the hair fell, but there was no dread, no unease. Just a simple haircut as it should be. As I sat in that chair, the memories of Mr. Faskell and his peculiar habit seemed like a distant, eerie dream. But the impact of that experience was all too real. It had changed me, changed how I perceive people. Trust, I realized, is not something to be given away freely, but something to be earned. And intuition, that gut feeling, is not to be ignored. It's our primal instinct, warning us when something is off. I've become more observant now, more cautious. I scrutinize before I trust. Perhaps some would call it paranoia, but I prefer to see it as wisdom. Wisdom gained from an experience that was as unsettling as it was enlightening. Looking back, the whole ordeal seems almost surreal. A barber who ate hair, a customer who became a recluse. It's a tale that could be straight out of a horror movie. But it was my reality, a reality that taught me about the darker shades of human nature. The experience with Mr. Faskell taught me a valuable lesson. When something seems too good to be true, it usually is.